welcome to another video of the CCNA training lab series. And in this video, we will learn about port security on a switch. And without wasting any time, let's just go to the lab. So we have some tasks provided on the lab that we need to work on. But before going on to work on the tasks, let's learn about port security. What exactly is port security and how does it help? So port security is a feature in Cisco switches that restricts an interface by limiting and identifying MAC addresses of the connected devices. This prevents unauthorized access by allowing only specific devices to communicate through the switch port. So what exactly it does is whenever we configure port security on any switch port, it will be restricting n number of addresses or MAC addresses that can be connected to the switch port. So if you allow 5 MAC addresses, only 5 MAC addresses can be connected to the switch port, and if there is any one more MAC address that will be connected to the port will show the error. So how port security works? So we can specify maximum MAC addresses. We can specify how many devices are allowed on a port. If more than the specified limit tries to connect, the switch triggers a violation. Sticky MAC addresses. So when you enable this option on the port, the switch will learn the MAC addresses that are connected or the devices that are connected to the port, and it will save it in the running configuration. And there are violation modes that we need to define. When we are configuring port security, we can define what should happen when any violation happens. So if you have configured the maximum MAC addresses to 1 or 2, and if a third one gets connected, we have to configure whether it should restrict it, protect it, or shut down the port. So port security violation modes, let's define here. The protected mode, it will drop the traffic from unauthorized MAC addresses, but the port will remain operational. Restricted mode drops unauthorized traffic, generates a log message, and sends SNMP traps. So it will generate a log message, and if you are monitoring the switch, it will send a log message to the monitoring tool, and but the port remains operational. And there is one more violation mode, that is the shutdown mode, and that is the default mode on the switch port. It disables the port entirely. The port enters into the error disabled state. So we'll see this practically. And this is considered to be the most secure option, but sometimes it could disrupt the network availability because once the port gets shut down, your network might not work on to the PC or to the MAC address of the device that is connected. So what kind of attacks can port security prevent? So it can prevent MAC address spoofing, MAC address flooding. It can prevent ARP poisoning as well, and it can prevent DOS attacks. And anyhow, it will prevent unauthorized device access as well. So as we came to know, what does the port security? So for better understanding of port security, so this lab is divided into three parts: part one, part two, and part three. So first of all, let's go into part one and perform the tasks. So without wasting any time, let me take out packet tracer, Cisco packet tracer. And what does the first task say? The first task says find MAC address of switch 1, of switch 2 on switch 1, and switch 1 on switch 2. Okay, so if you want to check the MAC address here, you can type in the command show MAC address table, and you can see the MAC address is learned dynamically or automatically from the fast Ethernet 0/1 port. There is one more command. As you know, that switch 1 is connected on the fast Ethernet 0/1 interface. We can see the MAC address on the fast Ethernet. So this is a command where you can also check what MAC address this fast Ethernet 0/1 port is connected. And you can see here, this is the MAC address it is connected to. So this MAC address is the MAC address of switch 2, and this is not the MAC address of switch 1. So the MAC address table contains the MAC addresses of the connecting devices and not the MAC address of itself. So the connected device MAC address is 000C85A0B501. So this is the MAC address of switch 2. So let's verify it on switch 2. On switch 2, I will type in a command called show interface fast ethernet 0/1, and here you can see the hardware address or the MAC address of 00 of the interface itself. So this is the MAC address of the interface of the fast Ethernet 0/1 on switch 2. So this MAC address is connected to fast Ethernet 0/1 port on switch 1. Okay, so you can verify this. So this is on the switch 2, and this is the MAC address that is connected to switch 1. Okay, so we verified the first task. Check the MAC address table and see if we have the MAC address of PC A, B, and C. Okay, so as we have seen with the command show MAC address table, you can see only one MAC address is learned on the MAC address table, that is learned dynamically from switch 2 on the fast Ethernet 0/1. Okay, why do you think the MAC address table doesn't show the MAC address of this PC? Okay, so why do you think the PCA's MAC address is not learned by the switch 1, or the MAC address table is not showing the MAC address of PCA? It's only because there is no traffic that is generated yet from the PC to the switch to learn the MAC address. Okay, let's try to generate. So the third task is ping the PCA to PCB. Okay, let me see what is the IP address. IP address is 10.0.0.1. Ping 10.0.0.2. That is on the other side of the other switch. Okay, now what does it say? Check the MAC address table again. So let's go ahead and check the MAC address. Show MAC address table. Now you can see show MAC address table. When I type in the show MAC address table, you can see all the MAC addresses that are learned by the switch. So from fast Ethernet 0/2, fast Ethernet 0/2 is the port where the PCA is connected, and this is the one that is learned dynamically on fast Ethernet 0/1. So how does it learn dynamically? Because when you try to ping 10.0.0.2, it gets a reply back from the PC, and so it has learned from fast Ethernet 0/1 because it has learned the MAC address from this switch to this switch. Okay, what does the fifth task say? Enable port security on the switch. So to enable the port security, we have to go into the interface mode, interface fast Ethernet 0/2, connected to PC. So connected to PC, the interface fast Ethernet 0/2 is connected to the PC. Okay, switch port hyphen security is the command. You can see here the switch port hyphen security command enables the port security on the interface. Okay, okay, the command got rejected. Why? Fast Ethernet 0 is a dynamic port. Okay, so the port security can be only applied on access ports. Okay, so we need to configure the port as access port. We learned in the VLAN configuration, it's switch port mode access. And now let's go to switch port hyphen security. Okay, now once the port is converted to a access port, we were able to apply switch port security. Okay, and now the question is how many MAC addresses are allowed on a port security enabled interface. So to check that, we have to type in a command show port security. Okay, so let me take out paint. Let me try one thing here. So let me copy paste this. Let's try to understand what exactly this command does. Okay, so here what does it say when you type in the command switch port show port security? It shows the secure port number is fast Ethernet 0/2 because we have configured this port as port security port. So maximum secure addresses that are allowed is 1, and the security action it takes when it is violated is shutdown. So we can check the same thing on with another command show port security interface fast Ethernet 0/2. Here you can see the port security is enabled for the interface. Port status is secure up and violation mode is shut down. So if it is violated, the port will go into shutdown. And what is the maximum MAC addresses allowed? It is by default, it is 1. So the question says how many MAC addresses are allowed on port security enabled device? It is 1. And what is the default action in the event of a port security violation? Okay, what is the default action? So the default action for violation is shutdown. Okay, and now the question says manually configure secure MAC addresses for fast Ethernet 0/2. Okay, let me copy this. What does this command do? Let's copy this command and paste it here. So you can find the difference here between the show port security and show port security interface fast Ethernet 0/2. So if you want to see the interface, the status of the interface, the security status of the interface, the show port security interface fast Ethernet 0/2 is a very good option. But if you want to see how many interfaces or so the show port security will tell you it will show you the number of interfaces that are in the show port or enabled with port security. Okay, now we have enabled only one. So if you enable one more, it will be showed here. Okay, what is the next? Manually configure secure MAC address. Now let me try to go into interface fast Ethernet 0/2 Now what I will do is I will try to take the fast Ethernet MAC address of this PC and try to switch port security MAC address. So this is the command for adding a MAC address static statically or manually to make this secure. So what this command does is if you add this MAC address, no other MAC address will be allowed on this port other than this MAC address. Okay. Now you can see we have added the show port security MAC address, and now we have to configure switch 2 as well. Let me go to switch 2. We'll configure the same thing again. Enable configure terminal interface fast Ethernet 0/2. Before that, let's see. So MAC address table. We have one that is learned from the switch 1. Okay. Now as it is not showing, let's try to ping PCA ping 10.0.0.1. Now let's try to show MAC address table. You can see all the switch addresses are learnt here. Okay, so conf t interface fast ethernet 0/2 switch port mode access switch port security. Okay, and let me try to add the MAC address of switch port security address MAC address. This is the command, paste it, and we have enabled it. Okay, now let's do a show MAC address table. And you can see here, this is showing as the fast Ethernet 0/2. We have statically assigned this MAC address. Okay, so we have manually configured this MAC address for the MAC address table, and we have concluded the part 1 of our lab. So we will go to the second lab in some time.